Welcome to Empowering Chats with Susan Burrell. This is where we have deep, intimate conversations about self-empowerment and future existence. I am an intuitive healer and a light leader who has been called to activate other light leaders. So I'm curious, are you one of them? So by listening, lean in and see if you are ready to be that eternal potential you've been called to be. Using your bravery, your talents, your tenacity, can you be innovative and adventurous in order to activate your light and lead from that place? This is where we learn how to love ourselves from the inside out and love the whole world over and over again. Enjoy the show. You guys, I can't even tell you how excited, how much I've been looking forward to this conversation. I know absolutely we're going to receive so much information, illumination, and expansiveness. We're going to be elevated through this conversation, you guys. And I'm so excited because this woman is an author of so many books. I couldn't even write them all down before we started. But she's also a channeler. And I've been following her, and she speaks truth to me when I listen. So I think she'll speak truth to all of us today. So I want to welcome Caroline Oceana Ryan. Caroline, thank you for joining me. I'm not kidding. I'm like the little girl inside of me is just going, yip, 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 yip.
Thank you, Susan. Lovely to be here. And hi, everyone.
So one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you, okay, I got several. There's more than 5. Okay. But I want to talk to you about the 5D experience because I really am rocking and rolling, and I have friends and clients who think they're sick, testing for COVID again because they feel so yucky. And I understand that that's part of the 5D experience, that people don't, if we're not aware, we don't really know that that's what's happening, as opposed to our physical body really is. Well, our physical body is acclimating, but can you speak a little bit about all that?
Well, it's a really good point, Susan, and I really value the chance to be here and talk about this sort of a thing, because what people are going through many, many times, very, very often, these are what we call ascension symptoms. So if you're feeling congestion come up, sometimes, as we were saying earlier, it's in response to certain parts of the world are in spring right now, and pollen and dust, etc., is everywhere, high winds in certain places. So, okay, the body is relating to environment. But you and I are shifting so powerfully on an energetic level and on a cellular level, not only in our spirits and our minds and our heart space, but on a cellular level, moving into this crystalline energy construct, moving out of the carbon-based construct. For that to happen, there has to be a lot of detoxing. So it's kind of like when you are in a fast, okay? You're fasting and you feel maybe some congestion coming up, or you're only eating raw fruits and vegetables, and you feel a bit of congestion, headaches, exhaustion. Your body is letting go of a lot of old toxicity it can no longer carry because you're encouraging it to leave. And also it's very happily taking advantage of a time when it can release those things, because we are eating stuff that's 70 or 80% water, and which is fantastic. You're drinking more pure water, structured water, for instance, or you are maybe exercising more or resting more. And the body is going to say to that, okay, great, there's some stuff I want to release. And I can do that through intense exercise, or I can do that while you're resting, or while you're eating pure foods. And it's an incredibly important process. It just feels very uncomfortable. And I would be the first to say, if you feel something is wrong, definitely, of course, if you want to see a doctor, totally understandable. I encourage people in the collective, as I'm generally encourage people to see naturopathic doctors if possible, because they have tests, they know about tests that your average Western medicine trained doctor won't think of. And they also won't just pull out the prescription pad. They'll look at what you're missing in terms of minerals and vitamins, and they'll give you the proper supplements to shore up your strength. We're really starting to experience our bodies very, very differently. We're also experiencing our emotions very differently. And with all this light pouring in, and I talk about these golden light frequencies pouring into the planet, and my friend Rama Arjuna calls it what its technical name, monoatomic gold dust. I guess you could say that's technical. These incredible light particles pouring in from our sun, they're sentient. They are absolutely full of this beautiful transformative energy, and they are lifting us higher every moment. Even if we lived underground, the earth is still absorbing them. And so as you and I are absorbing them, so much is happening that feels strange, and yet it is the transformation that we have begged for. It's what we've asked for eons. So here it is, and yeah, it feels uncomfortable because 3D was uncomfortable, and the releasing of that is not easy going at all. So that's what I to that. Give yourself a lot of time and a lot more rest.
I appreciate that. Drinko, I've been so thirsty. And since I've been following you and listening to you, Caroline, I've been allowing my awareness to receive the gold dust and the liquid gold. And I got to tell you, I feel better when I do that. Yeah. My whole system lights up, and it feels really, really good.
I feel better too, just meditating on that and just receiving. And I've started chanting this Hindu mantra, Adi Shakti, Namo, Namo, which is all about transforming the world to a higher level. And as I'm doing that, I'm imaging these gold particles, which are coming down. But as we think of them, as we let ourselves go into that reality, that's so important. We really do move to a higher level vibrationally. We really will feel better. We will. Yeah.
So one of the things, Caroline, that I found in all your lovely YouTube archive stuff is a guided meditation you did on an interview that takes us up into the sun. Now, explain about the sun, because we've also been having for the last month or more a lot of solar flares that are both health and well-being and mental states.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for several years now, the sun has been throwing off intense solar flares, and these sort of, I want to call them like coronal spasms. They're so bizarre, but yes, they're affecting us powerfully because that affects our electromagnetic charge, and it also affects the earth very powerfully. If you feel exhausted some days, particularly more exhausted than the usual ascension exhaustion, you might want to go online and check what was going on with the solar flares today. You know, some of them, they're X class, they're incredibly, incredibly high. M class, not as huge maybe, but still very intense. And we are taking in all of that energy, and it's highly transformative. I'm just going to ask the collective for a moment if they have anything they want to add to that, and I'll just relay whatever they're saying. Yeah. As the sun is expressing as a newly born white dwarf, you notice the sun is white now, not yellow anymore. As that is happening, it is transforming how it expresses itself, and then transforming its relationship to the earth, which is just absolutely amazing to me. It's just miraculous, and its relationship to the earth is, well, I'm ascending, I'm transfiguring, it's time for you to wake up and do the same. And then all of us absorb that as well. All of us are receiving that in really beautiful ways.
Receiving transformation.
Yeah, the energies of transformation, the opportunity as well. And that, again, means detoxifying from everything, all the awfulness that we have experienced in 3D. And as well, those times in certain lives where we were walking on the other side of the street. We were experimenting a bit in shadow to see what that was like. Maybe our soul just wanted that experience to expand a bit more in different ways, or to plant light in that whole aspect of life. Or maybe we wanted the power. Maybe we were just curious to know what that might be like. And that's an awful lot of people, probably most people to one degree or another. And you've probably seen some people who are very good-natured and sweet and well-intended about things. Every now and again, they'll take a strange little left turn. And I'm not saying left as in political. I'm saying in other words, they'll come up with something you weren't expecting. Now, sometimes that's an entity speaking up rather than them, because people have so many discarnate entities in them. I know my friend Bonnie Saratori talks about this a lot. She does a lot of clearings for that. I do with the collective. We've all taken on entities for those times we were in trauma and left our bodies, and somebody else decided, oh, great, I'll go in there. If you're not there, I'll go in. And then when we come back to the earth again in another life, some of those entities come back in, some new ones come in if we suffer trauma. There's so many complications. And sometimes that little left turn is an indication there's some corner of the ego mind or the personality, we all do this, that is still a bit in shadow. And that might be out of fear. We might have formed an agreement with some dark being at some point that said, yes, I'll follow you. And we still have these feelings of having taken this vow or this oath of allegiance to that group or that person, and we're still trying to fulfill it on some level. It's completely unconscious. So this and many other things are what we're releasing. And the sun's rays right now, absolutely miraculous. Absolutely. You can't be near a star that is transfiguring as powerfully as our sun is without being really fully affected by that.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. So it's also, so in that in the sun transforming into a new experience, the energy coming off of it is assisting us in transforming. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, because the sun is moving up in vibration, and that meditation that I offered in that interview is just a small example of what I offer in your 12-strand DNA calling in the power of the gold frequencies program, which people can look at on my website. It's all recorded now, but it's embedded with higher energies, and it's pretty cool. But that meditation, it gives just a small demonstration of how you can journey up into the sun. The sun isn't all plasma; it's not all this burning bright stuff. It's open in the center. Most planets and stars are, and including our Earth has many openings, and so you go up into the sun, and we go in through a portal, as there are many ships now coming and going into portals in the sun. The sun is actually functions as a stargate, and you go into a portal, you find yourself inside the sun, and then you see these beautiful pyramids, and this is what our pyramids of Giza were based on, I feel strongly. And then you intuitively know which pyramid to go into. You can't get it wrong, and the doors open automatically, and you go in, and it's just this astounding interior of beautiful light beings, golden dragons flying up near the apex. One of them is a friend. You call them to you. There are symbols on the interior walls. You'll be drawn to a particular symbol. You put your hand on it, and you'll receive a download of incredible, or download or upload, I forget which, of incredible wisdom that is specifically meant for you at this time. So every time you do that process and you put your hand on the wall, you'll receive something really beautiful you're meant to receive at the minute. And it's just a whole process of working with these beautiful beings, calling in new guides, meeting with a soul family, and it can be a bit different each time.
Yes, when I've done it, it's been different. Yes.
Yes, exactly right. You will find that. The idea is it's full of these beautiful gold particles. You can really see them. It's everywhere, and shafts of light pouring down. And you're breathing that in. You're just breathing that in and being transformed by it. And there's a golden pool. You can immerse yourself in it, or just dip your hands and face in it, or what have you, or drink some of it. It's not, of course, you don't want to drink liquid gold in real life. In that meditation, you absolutely can. Yes. And
right.
You are. It's part of your transformation.
Exactly. I feel, and it's lifting us. It's alchemy on a whole nother level. And you guys will have all those links in the show notes, so you can investigate all of these meditations that Carolina has. But I want to go back to the shadow, the dark entities, because I am for myself, I feel like I'm vigilant in clearing my energy field as much as possible, because I actually lived with a couple of those things. Do you know what I mean? Or people that had those things. So, do all of us really, 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 Caroline, do all of us really have dark entities, or is it the dark people that we're watching on the news right now?
Well, that's an interesting question. It comes down to each person's individual path. They're not necessarily dark entities. They're just people very often who, and you might have hundreds of them in your body and not know why. Not know why you can't stop drinking or smoking or overeating or over watching TV or whatever it is. People suffer from a lot because of those entities wanting to do those things. But these are people, these are discarnates. They left their physical body. The body died. And they rose up above the body. They saw it below them. They saw the light come in for them, but they did not go into that light. Now, a lot of people are told, maybe as they're growing up, maybe at other times, they're given strict, quite erroneous religious instruction that says, if you don't believe this or do this, you're going straight to hell when you die. And other people are almost they receive almost a curse, maybe from an angry parent or somebody else. This is, I bet you're going straight to hell when you die, that sort of a thing. And so they're terrified. They're terrified of this God who is not a God of love, but one of judgment and rage and ill temper at all times. And so they don't move into the light. So then they're wandering the earth and they see somebody whose vibration is very similar to their own. And they relate to that. They can see the vibration. They can see the energy around the person. And so at first opportunity, if that person is very weak, exhausted, ill, maybe very depressed, feeling a bit hopeless, oh, I just wish I weren't even on the planet kind of thinking, I wish I could just go home right now, or what's the point of life kind of thinking, that's it. That's the open portal. They move in.
Oh my God, I can actually think of two young men in their early 30s that might be experiencing that, and I hadn't even thought of it that way. And they really do. They need help because they're moving around with these darknesses, around them, and their parents are all their parents are not happy, right? What can they do to help their child?
Energy clearings for one thing.
And
those young men are old enough to seek that on their own. Something you can do, though, if somebody refuses to listen to an energy clearing or to go to a practitioner, you can listen on their behalf, call them in spirit, on a soul level or in spirit form, ask them to come forward. And if their higher self is amenable, that will happen. They will come in. I've never met any higher self that says no. Higher selves always want us to heal.
Yeah.
And sometimes to speak to the other part of your question, sometimes, there are dark beings, not every time, but it can happen because in some life, the person made a vow or oath to them and said, I'll be in this coven, or I'll be in this dark, might be satanic, might be something else, but I'll be in this dark group and I swear fealty to them and all of you, and I'll stick with you no matter what. Well, when we make those promises, they don't end just because our physical bodies die. They go on to the universe and they stay in place. And I think increasingly people are beginning to understand that. So we really have to release all the old oaths and vows, even the marital ones. All the old, I swear, I give my word, my promise, my place, my name, my dignity, my honor upon this, all of that. We've got to find ways to release it. And it can be done with an energy practitioner. Or you could just write out, I release any and all oaths, vows, promises, all contracts, agreements, commitments of any kind, unless they are for my higher good in this present moment. And in fact, you could say all of those formed in the third dimension. At this time, as we move into 5D, we don't really need soul contracts anymore. We don't really need notes. They're really passé. So I encourage people just release all of them. It's not helpful anymore.
So this right now, what humanity is working on, or what we've been watching over the last decade or longer, I guess, is releasing all the old lifetimes having lived on planet Earth, reincarnating, all of it through 3D that has perpetuated these agreements, vows, perpetuated a kind of I call it hardened masculine, the patriarchy. I try not to see it as dark, although it has been very harmful. So this is what moving from 3D to 5D is really watching all of those old systems crumble, right?
Yes. Consciously releasing them wherever we can, because they really don't serve us any longer. They do not serve a higher good. And they, if anything, have held us back very often. Something sort of like a crutch, something we thought we needed in 3D, which people would never do in 5D. I mean, they would absolutely never do it. They would never say, yeah, I will swear this, or I'll create this contract with you, unless it was of a very high order. And that even then they would make sure that it flowed with the prevailing energies of a person's soul progression and expansion, and then it didn't hold them in place with a vice-like grip, no matter what.
Oh my gosh.
People come in and they have no idea. They've lived other lives. They're taught one religion or another that says, oh no, you've never incarnated before, and this is the only time you will incarnate, which is kind of, I was raised in the very strict right-wing evangelical sort of movement. But I began to have memories of lives I had lived, and memories coming up in dreams, not just in my waking state, but in dreams. And I thought, this is real. I was there, and we've all visited places where we seem to know the place, or we relate to it very strongly, even though supposedly we've never been there before. And the first time I visited England, I thought, I've spent lives here, I'm sure. And it just, it unfolds over time, and you realize the constraints of religion is they are one of the traps that the old power crowd has held us in. That now the powers that were, they're now increasingly weakened and dissolving power crowd. Yeah.
Well, it's not a funny story, but last year when my husband and I were traveling in Ireland, he wanted to go through this town. I won't name the town, but he wanted to go there and look at some archival stuff at the library. And as we got closer to that town, I felt like I couldn't breathe. I was feeling my shoulders were up. I felt like I was just being stuck in a cage or something. And when we got out of the car, I was like, I can't be here. I can't be here. And I began to feel this heavy, heavy pressure on my chest. And so he's like, okay, what do we do? I said, I think I need to walk into this church, which was the Church of England, right? Which was ancient and old, and it was locked. Across the street was this brand new Catholic church, which I have stuff about. And I said, well, let's just walk in there. And I just walked in. I walked straight back and ended up in front of the altar of Mother Mary, sat down and did my inner work to release this, because I don't know if it was in my old life or we drove through someone who had been, because that was a form of punishment in the 1600s, laying stones on top of live people until, especially if they were Catholic. So it was interesting. I had to go into a Catholic church
as well, because it was carried over by the Puritans.
Oh my goodness!
They thought someone was a witch, being pressed. Yeah.
All that stuff.
Were you able to work through it?
Yes, I have a healer I work with, and I texted him, and he was, on the other side of the world, and I'm sitting in this sanctuary, if you will, and just releasing it and releasing it and releasing it. And it took about 10 minutes once I could recognize what it was, to just kind of just let it go and surrender it up, so it could be transmuted into the higher realms of, I just see it in the higher realms of love. So it's so important, everybody, that you pay attention to how you're physically feeling all the time, but especially during this time of transmutation, of moving into 5D. Now, Caroline, in the 5D, when you're saying we don't need these contracts, we don't need this divisiveness, everybody. We do not need divisiveness anymore. There's not, I'm right, you're wrong. There's none of that in the 5D, right, Caroline? Isn't it more love frequency?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up because we have been steeped in duality for so long. And with the situations of war and famine and attempted genocide happening on the planet now, a lot of people are very, very divided from their neighbor and even family members and close friends. It's very difficult. And I take a strong stand that war is never the answer and the famine need not happen to anyone, that very often it's manipulated. But I've had to pull myself back from muttering something about this world leader or that, including our current ones in the U.S., most of them who are in favor of war because they're in the back pocket of war profiteers, the military-industrial complex. And it's just, it's very strange coming out of it. All parts of the mind will say, well, why aren't you angry? Or what do you mean this person's the enemy? And it's because of them that this is happening. It isn't. It's because of the human condition that this is happening. It's because we're growing up and out of, as you say, out of the duality, the good, bad, and I'm right, you're wrong, or I'm wrong and you're right, and I feel bad now kind of a thing. And how perfect, I want to say quickly, how perfect your team led you to that town so you could release that trauma.
Yes.
And
Yes.
you did a beautiful job. You were suffocated in a life there, going way back. And I think I'm just trying to okay. It was a land dispute. So it wasn't like a judgment as if you were a witch or anything. You might have been a man in that life. Yeah, they're saying you were. And it looks like they just wanted your land and yeah, I won't go through it, but the men just saw to it that you weren't in their way anymore.
Yeah.
And this happens still, but you needed to release it. You wanted to release it. It's one of the reasons you were in Ireland. You probably waking up to this, starting to have memories in your dream state. And your team said, okay, we're going to go there and we're going to release it. How fantastic. And that's where we are right now, going to the microcosm on this planet. We're looking at terrible things happening because of what we're releasing, not because we're going to be stuck in it forever, but because we've got to get this up to the surface and get rid of it. And yes, expose the old power crowd, but also expose those aspects of our spirit and psyche that don't mind the darkness and don't mind division and don't mind blaming and separatism and veer off and away from unity and oneness because, well, if I do that, then I can't be right all the time, that kind of thing. And wow, we're facing it. We're really facing it now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I have two things I want to say about that because some of this battle, if you will, is within ourselves, right? Like you were saying, you were having to, your mind was saying, well, why can't I say that? Or why? And I'm noticing, when I'm judging that person over there, it's because I want to be right. And there's the duality right there, right? I'm right. You're wrong. You're whatever it is. And I have been tasked to activate light leaders. And so as a light leader, I can't do that anymore. When people want to sit down and chew the fat, as my grandmother used to say, or gossip, right, about what's going on in our lives. And I can't do that anymore. It's not for me to speak ill, which is really hard, Caroline, during this election year.
But it's been hard. It is. Here, Susan, I would say to you and anyone, as I say to myself, it takes practice. I get angry. I'm very politically aware. I get angry at world leaders and how in love they are with war. And how in love they are with harming innocent people because they got a bloodlust. They're feeding the lords of chaos. They're feeding the darkness. They're happy with that. They made a deal, to never die or to just be powerful, wealthy forever. And so you just kind of, you and I in our space and your viewers, your listeners in our space of just wanting light, just wanting peaceful coexistence everywhere. It's this huge blockage that's in our way. We can't understand it. There's a lot that light bearers just can't figure out. And some people say, oh, why didn't you just finish those people? Why don't you just why did you let them talk to you like that? And the truth is we veer around conflict because deep down we see that, well, this is someone who they just said something very rude or they were very angry for no reason. This is somebody who is in spiritual infancy. And if I add more fuel to the fire by getting enraged at that person, I haven't helped them and I've lowered my own vibration. And, there's no there has to be a moment where even when they go low, we go very high. And I move to a place of, no, I'm not going to engage on that level because I don't live on that level. I don't even understand it. And so we get blamed as being maybe too passive or too nice or do this or that. Right. And the more you live in a state of peace, the more you'll experience it and the more you're planting it into the planet.
Yes. And that's important too. Planting it into Mother Earth, planting those seeds of peace, which we all carry. We all have peace within us. It doesn't matter if you've got some darkness around you. There's still that light. There's still that spark of light within each and every person on the planet, wherever they are. And that's the seed that we can blossom into peace and higher love and all of that. It sounds very woo-y, right, Caroline?
And yet it's visceral. It can be very graphic. I've lived in Northern Ireland 4 or 5 different times and wrote a book and was a community volunteer there in Belfast. And in my research, I read a story, and this probably took place in the 70s or 80s, about a woman who was being interviewed by a reporter. Her husband had been killed by a paramilitary, and I don't know which side, whether loyalist, British loyalist paramilitary or Republican army, I don't know which. But her husband had been killed, and this man, the killer, was found and sent to jail. And she told the reporter, yes, I did write to him, and I told him I forgive him.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. And the reporter said, I'm sorry, what? Can you repeat that? And she put it in her story, and it made headlines around the world. And then this woman was being interviewed a lot more. But, I mean, I get emotional about it because I've lived there. This is where we are on this planet. This is just plain where we are.
Yeah. And it, like you said earlier, it's neighbor against neighbor.
Yeah.
And Ireland is a really good example, and bloodshed, and what's happening in Israel and Gaza right now, and or the Ukraine. I mean, you can just point, you could even just throw a dart at a world map and you'd land on some conflict that's happening right now.
Yes.
Like you said, it's erupting, it's coming up because that's the dark pockets that have to be seen, and then the light can fill in there. It's like finding black mold in your house, right? You got to
get rid of it, or it will keep spreading. Yeah,
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Absolutely right. And with this light pouring in, it's doing 2 things, which Mother Sekhmet pointed out to us in that channeling we were talking about earlier. It's exposing the mold, it's exposing the darkness. And it's all so that we can realize it's there and come to very conscious rejection of the darkness in a peaceful way. And then it's also bringing in the light that gives us the courage for that and helps us to see a higher reality than one of division, helps us to see unity. We've been thousands of years on this planet without even being able to describe or draw a picture of unity. It was just oneness. It was just impossible. What do you mean we're scrambling to stay alive here? We've got to kill our enemy when they come and invade our village and that sort of thing. And okay, that's how we chose to live for a while, but we can't do that anymore. We just can't.
Yep. When the conflict was happening in Serbia and Croatia, I was flabbergasted that nobody was taking care of that nobody was doing anything about it, right? Yep. And now people go and have lovely vacations in Croatia, and I'm like, do you know what just happened here?
Not that long ago.
Not that long ago, and how easy. Oh, I was going to say how easy we forget, but it's not that we actually forget. I just heard that it's a brainwash.
Yeah.
To hide what you were just talking about earlier in this conversation of those dark entities, or the contractual stuff that happened eons ago to hold humanity in this stuck place. And all that's breaking away.
Absolutely right. Absolutely. And we're waking up to where we know now increasingly when we were getting energy transmissions from the old crowd that are trying to lead our attention off of the real issues. I watched one of the old networks, the TV networks, news on YouTube last night out of curiosity. And they spent more time on a sort of very light, kind of silly human interest story and on something else that was pretty trivial than they spent on the bigger issues, which they had dealt a glancing blow to that, but nothing really, not really investigative and not really as if, oh, this isn't really, yeah, this is happening. But we're going to skip past that because our sponsors prefer that we talk about something fun and adorable. And I guess that's their choice. But it's also a mechanism. It's been a mechanism since the news was invented to shift our ideas from looking directly at one issue to something else, to get distracted. It's all a distraction measure. And a lot of social media likewise. And yet look at how social media can also be used for something really beautiful and empowering for people. And there's a lot that goes on it that's positive, even though there's a lot that's negative.
Right.
That's again the duality. But we are coming out of this time where we're so easily fooled. We really are.
Yeah, I'm hearing the scales are falling from our eyes.
Yes.
Right. And what's been occurring, it's still occurring, is the whole ancient magic thing of smoke and mirrors. This is going on, but really just look at me, and here's the smoke, and here's the mirrors, but what's really going on is over here, and that is gaining power while the magician is going smoke and mirrors, smoke and mirrors, smoke and mirrors.
Exactly. Yeah. Or they'll launch a rationale. This is why we have to go to war with these people. Or this is why this crowd has been at the low end of the economic spectrum for so long. It's all their fault, etc. And we're waking up. The old tricks don't work like they used to. So this is why one big reason why they pulled so much out of their hat. They've just pulled so many extreme measures over the past few years, 4 or 5 years especially, because they knew this light was coming in and they couldn't stop the light. Even though at first they tried, they realized they couldn't and gave up. And also, we have been informing the old crowd in our sleep state, in our etheric bodies, look, the light has already won.
Oh, I love that.
Step into the light while you still have time.
Oh my goodness, I love that, because there is a place, in the walking of, 3D here right now, excuse me, where I get a little, I get anxious, not so much like I used to, but is this really working? Is this really working? When lockdown happened with the pandemic, and I don't know, and I saw what that was, right? And everybody's scurrying around, scared out of their minds, and people are dropping dead just because, and I thought, okay, well, here's the opportunity to be in isolation, find your inner light, find your inner peace, align with your highest good, really, take time to meditate because everything got so quiet. And then when it opened up again, it was the same old mishigosh. I was like, wait, didn't anybody pay attention?
I know what you mean. I think that some people's lives were changed because a lot of people decided to work from home at least half the day, if not every day. A lot of people decided to start their own business. And a lot of people were forced to look inward. And the whole idea of spending the whole day just watching TV which, as a kid, I did that in summer vacations. But if you live in a small town, there's not a lot, or outside of not even in the town, there's not a whole lot to do. And yet, I think some people woke up to the fact that some things in their life had to change because they had the time to ruminate on that. Now, unfortunately, drug and alcohol abuse and domestic abuse also increased it during that time. So there was also this push of, well, I can't stand it. I don't want to look at my life. I can't bear it. and they just wanted to escape from that. These are people who need busyness so as to feel balanced. I understand that. I can easily go into that kind of life, so there's no judgment. And yet, if I didn't make myself get quiet each day or nearly that, I would be missing so much. I'd be missing the point of much of my life.
Right.
So I had to come to that, though. I wasn't there for a long time.
Yeah. I hear you. I hear you. And now, is some of that those kinds of obsessive, addictive behaviors? Is that part of also this shadow stuff that's still?
Oh yeah. Most people will release their addictions if you can get the entities out that are anchoring those addictions in them. Mm-hmm. They'll release it. Mm-hmm. 9.9 times out of 10.
And you do that. You have on your website, I saw that people can make appointments for a channeling session or clearing and stuff.
Yeah. It's pretty nearly every channeling session is going to have clearings in it.
Yeah.
Because everybody's interfered with on one level or another. And that can include what we image. And I think it was by Sartori who I first saw doing this. But what we image is that all these old vows and oaths, all these old soul contracts, agreements, commitments, anything not serving our higher good is going into the white flame of the divine feminine. She calls it the white flame of the Holy Spirit. But I have known since I was very small, the Holy Spirit is the divine feminine. So that's what I call it. Or you can use the cool violet flame, the transmuting flame of Saint Germain. Very, very helpful. I often just put the whole world I just envision the world in that cool transmuting flame. Because being dark now has to be lifted to a higher level.
Yeah.
And I felt like a year or so ago, I said this on a radio show I'm a co-host on. I said, we're right at the precipice. Either we're going to start moving up to the level of our galactic brothers and sisters, and we're going to bring unprecedented levels of light to this planet, such as she hasn't seen in thousands and thousands of years since the fall of the great civilizations, such as Atlantis and Lemuria, or we're going to fall off that cliff to our own demise. I no longer feel that we're in between. I feel that we are anchoring light to where we're moving into a far more beautiful form of living on this planet. But in order for all that to happen, of course, it's kind of like, God forbid, you get an infection in a tooth. You've got to heal that infection. And you can't just close things up, and let the infection sit there and pretend everything's fine. Even if you have a beautiful smile, you've got to deal with that infection. You've got to deal with something that is the surface, and all that's coming up now, all of it.
I kind of, what I'm hearing right now as you're speaking, Caroline, is that it's like water displacing water. So the more light that is anchoring into the planet through our cells, through our being, is displacing and pushing the dark entity, not entity, but the darkness that is burrowed down. It's moving it up because the light is doing that displacement thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's dislodging that which anchored itself into the planet and the planet's etheric reality, including all the old etheric dark machinery. It's dislodging that. I mean, the old Matrix is in tatters. Pretty much it looks like the Death Star after it got hit in that first Star Wars movie. Yeah.
So I have two questions about this because one is going to go this way and one's going to go this way. All right. So what do I want to ask first? Okay, I want to ask this one. So when I've watched your videos and everything, I find you when you talk about the collective, when the collective talks through you, I find it very uplifting and it calms me down. It makes me feel hopeful and all of that I can still be a light leader. I can bring it down. I can channel it in and send it out and all that. Now, I don't notice that there is future talk. Like lots of psychics like to give a date, time, a date, and blah, 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 blah. And I appreciate that because when somebody says on this day that's going to happen, then my entire attention is on that date. So, so I just wanted you to know I really appreciate that.
Well, I'm glad people do in sessions ask for timing, ask for specific dates about this or that. And the collective will remind them the future is always evolving. Nothing's carved in stone. You have free will on this planet. And in addition to which, you live in the quantum field, which is this very great sea of energy. It's a field, a huge open field of possibilities and potentials is more the term they use. And so they'll just say, what potential are you actively choosing with the vibration that you're maintaining? Your predominant vibration is what's going to determine, say, your predominant vibration about money determines how much money you have. Your predominant vibration about relationships determines how your relationships go and what they're like, etc. And so on. And no, it's always open. Now, what's interesting is that, for instance, my friend Rama, who is a white knight of the Ashtar Command, and is one of the co-hosts on this BBS radio show that I'm on Thursday nights, but he has pointed out that his contacts, some of whom are ETs, some of whom are ascended masters, he's known these people since childhood. They're just there. He's just an evolved soul. And he's pointed out that they do know when the Sara law, for instance, is going to be enacted, but they cannot. According to universal law, they cannot give us that date. And the reason why is what you just stated, that when we get a particular day, it's the 18th of such and such, we fixate on that. And then we expect it to happen then. And then it will happen. Why? Because we all agreed, I heard that's going to happen on that date. And right. So our choice, our level of a free will choice, I create my own path, and humanity creates its own path that was taken from us with this prediction that becomes a dictate, because we're still used to just receiving information. And if it comes from a source we trust, we say, that's the truth. Just like you'll hear people say, I just read this or I just heard this. And they're quoting it very authoritatively as if it must be true. People joke it must be true because I saw it on TV or I heard it on the internet. But in fact, that's how our brains have been trained to work.
Right. Right. And Nostradamus was one of them that, gave time frames, and I remember
the old term. We have to be careful that people with these dates weren't addressing the old 3D timeline, which is over. We're on the 5D timeline now.
My goodness. Well, thank God. Thank God for that. I am thrilled about that. So the over here was the Star Wars reference and the galactic and all of that. So can you speak a bit about that? My husband is a science fiction aficionado, so any new Star Wars show or where I forget what else, Star Trek, Star Wars comes on, he has to watch them all. Yeah. And when I watch them with him, there's truth in it.
No. Well, your husband is remembering his time in the ships. He's up on the ships a lot in his etheric body, and you are as well. They can be different ships. They don't have to be the same ship. But he relates strongly to his memories of living as what people call ETs, but you can be humanoid and be ET. It doesn't really matter the shape or the color. But he's relating very strongly to that. And he also came in to help anchor, to help people remember their extraterrestrial experiences and lives and other planets and star systems, and also times in the future that they've lived, what we call the future, where they're already always on a ship, or they're on a planet where people can just transport from one place to another like they do in the Star Trek series. And Star Wars, interestingly, was channeled, as was Star Trek. I think it was Phyllis Summers who channeled for Gene Roddenberry or one of the other creators of Star Trek. And then I forget who the channeler was, if I've ever heard that name, who George Lucas spoke with. But Princess Leia came through, and her planet or her star system was Aldebaran, not Alderaan. But that story is real. It's true. And it's a sign of the times we're in, that you and I were born in a time where we see these films and we relate to them, and your husband relating to them, which is wonderful. And whole parts of us saying, I remember, or I've been there. I've been on that.
Yeah, and which is obviously what makes them so popular, because people, they, even though they don't consciously know they're remembering, they're attracted because they remember.
Sure. I was a school kid like many others when I saw Star Wars, and I sat there, first film, it came out, and I sat there and I thought, this is real. This is absolute. People live this way. This is real. And I wasn't the only one. Many millions around the world related to them.
Right.
It wasn't just, oh boy, this is a fun fantasy series of movies. It was, I want to know more, because we're kind of stuck on this planet. We're not allowed interplanetary travel, even though that exists. And people are now waking up to saying, well, how come it's only billionaires who get to go up into space? And it's not that expensive when you come down to it. There's just a lot of hidden technology, hidden star connection that we are not permitted to see, but increasingly it's coming through. And we're bypassing this old, ridiculous, self-appointed authoritative structure and just saying, oh, I'm just going to connect with my ET friends, and using CE5, the Close Encounter 5 sort of protocol of meditation to call them in as groups. And Dr. Stephen Greer has been wonderful with popularizing that, and, you know, hosting groups that want to be in connection with their ET family. And it's just astounding. It's brilliant. And I know a group here in Albuquerque. I'm living in near Santa Fe, New Mexico. I've just joined a group in Albuquerque that a friend is in, and she encouraged me to join and just said, you know, we'll be doing things like this. You'll be relating to people who are experiencers. I am, in the sense that anytime I've been aboard a ship, I haven't really remembered it outside of dreams, but those dreams were very, very real. Like, you know, I'm looking at you right now, kind of real. And also, when ETs are in the room, I really feel it. Yeah. They're not always cool, but I can see them in my mind's eye. Well, spend time in Sedona. You spend time in Sedona if you want to know about ETs. I lived there for almost 4 years, and it was a little intense.
You're not feeling that in Santa Fe?
Not as blatantly, not as intrusively. What I felt in Sedona was highly intrusive. I mean, like every night, if I came out of my bedroom to get a glass of water or whatever, I could see in my mind's eye a reptilian soldier standing, same place every night. And finally I said to him, what are you doing? Why are you here? And he just said, orders. That's all he said. And so I would close my door firmly at night. I would wake up in the morning, it'd be wide open. My friend Ina Lenara was staying overnight one time. She was staying in my room. I was sleeping in the living room. I heard the door open, and I thought she was coming out of the bedroom. But she said, no, it opened by itself, quote unquote, and a little light came in and just wandered like that. And she said, what do you want? Who are you? What do you want? They said, oh, we just come in to pass. We're just passing through. She said, all right, go, you know, be on your way. And most assuredly, that was an ET presence. There have been people, Craig Campobasso has written wonderful books about different kinds of ETs and experiences and events. And he and a friend, I've interviewed him, and he and a friend were in Sedona, and they were driving along a road, and I think they were purposely looking for something out in the countryside that would connect them to ETs. And he heard this message, this clear message in his inner mind space that said, if you drive any further, your lives will be changed irrevocably and will never go back to how they were.
Wow.
His friend received the exact same message. Wow. He related to her, and she said, I just heard the exact same thing. And they turned the car around and left. And there's military presence. A lot of those rock mountains are hollow. There's dragons in them, some friendlier than others, shall we say. Very intense place. So that's a little unusual. Mount Shasta also, maybe not that dark, but also very unusual. So, if you're in a place that's known for a lot of ET activity, there will be certain presences there. And Sedona is certainly Santa Fe, not an exception, but I don't feel the intrusiveness here. I don't feel it so keenly. And so I don't feel my life kind of disrupted by it. Yeah.
Right. Wow.
And you're just ton of paranormal stuff going on. with ghosts and everything. And
right.
sometimes.
So it sounds like there's multiple, well, of course, there's multiple dimensions that a lot of beings are in. Like you mentioned the dragons, and my husband and I have a discussion about unicorns when we first started dating, because I've always known that they are real. They were real, are real. When the Harry Potter series came out, I was like, there, see, that's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
And he would tease me about they're not real, or he affirms they're not. But yet he buys me unicorn stuffed animals because there's a part of him that I think that really does believe.
Yep. I believe, absolutely. I would accept that. It's just that it's harder for men because they are put in a position to always have to be these sort of, if not very tough macho types, then strict, no-nonsense, highly logical types. So if something is not yet accepted by the masses as being real, they don't want to be the first one in line to say, yes, it is, unless they're willing to take a big chance. Even in childhood, any guy who isn't tough enough and on the straight and narrow enough gets made fun of. That gets deeply ingrained in men. And it's been part of this old machinery, this old etheric machinery we've all been subjected to view life that way. Many women will feel they have to do that just to survive.
Wow. Yep.
And he'll come around, don't worry. The fact he buys you those stuffed animals is wonderful.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He's pretty remarkable.
Sounds great.
So, Caroline, I feel like we're kind of at a good place for closure. So what would you like to say to the listeners out of everything we've talked about? What would be one or two or three things you want to say?
Oh, just really to love yourself through this intense process we're in. Don't be hard on yourself. If you see yourself eating more or less, don't criticize, don't get upset. If you see yourself really wanting to exercise more or not at all, some days you will want to be quiet. Spend as much time as you can out in nature. I'm guilty of being glued to my computer for work. That's not healthy. Example. Get out there more often. I love being out in nature, especially parts of the world now are in springtime. I'll just quickly ask the collective too if they have something they'd like to add. I'll just ask them to come forward. It just takes a moment. Oh, greetings, dear ones. What an absolutely beautiful reflection and time of not only conversation, but an energy transmission of joy and release and acceptance and love to all on the earth. Whatever you are going through, all is well, dear ones. And yes, as our writer was saying, we just call her that, our writer, but as she was saying, don't be scolding yourself. If you're exhausted, rest more. If you're headachy, do what you can to take some quiet moments to recover from that. And it may not last as long as you assume. Absolutely, meditation is important. And it might just be concentrating on your breathing for 5 minutes every morning. It doesn't have to be hours and hours of mantra chanting and this and that. If you wish to do that, completely wonderful. You'll be raised to new heights. If you feel that's difficult, that's all right. Do what you can. Play the higher vibrational music and just call in your spirit team. They're always with you anyway. And just say to them, I would love some direction, please, on this issue or that. I would love to feel stronger, healthier, etc. I would love to move to the next level of abundance or of understanding my life purpose. Why am I here exactly? Am I doing the right things? Am I planting light all the time, no matter what? Is that true? Because I heard that, and I wonder if that's true. And just be open. Thoughts might come in. If you don't hear them directly, just say to them, look, just infuse my thinking with yours. Or just put something out there for me to see. It might be a newspaper headline or something, an article on the internet. It just pops out at me. That's fine. You're still receiving, dear ones. You're still receiving their beautiful wisdom. And please never feel you're alone. You are constantly loved. Your soul family are with you. They can multi-locate. They're fine. Some of them you've met upon the earth. And your beloved spirit guide or guides, plural, and your angelic guardians, your higher self, constantly with you. Your twin flame constantly with you, whether or not they've actually incarnated with you or not. For many, their twin flames stay behind to offer help in the etheric. So don't feel that, oh, all is lost, they're far away. They're right next to you. They're right there and they love you. And they want to converse with you. They want a more open connection and a beautiful interchange of ideas. And you can't say the wrong thing. They've known you since the birth of your soul, possibly. So you're not going to say the wrong thing or be or do the wrong thing. So just be at peace and at ease with them and say to them, this is hard for me, or I want to change this, or why did this happen? I need to understand. Something interesting that people can do, and we do encourage, is get a sheet of paper, write at the top, why is this hard for me, or why did this happen? What was the point? Switch the pen to the non-dominant hand that you never write with. Let the story come out because you know it. Deep down, you know the answer. It's in your subconscious or it's in the higher mind. So just let it come forward. So beautiful helps for you, dear ones. Ways to lift your vibration with emotional freedom technique, such as, tapping or energy clearings, or you can speak with us. You can speak with many who are holding the light now to assist in a very vocal and clear way and to relay what one spirit team is saying to one. So just know that there are many helps. No, they need not all be very pricey, very expensive. Many are available to you for free, and you are available to you for free, and you are a beautiful font of love and absolute higher wisdom and peace of mind and the higher mind realization of the wisdom that you are seeking outwardly. All of it's there. You just need to bring it forward. So we send much love, dear ones, just flowing a lot of reassuring love. It's wonderful. The Lady Master says she finds the messages helpful. We're very glad, reassuring and supportive, very glad to hear this. And we send same love and reassurance to all. And so we'll bring our writer back now. Namaste. So that's kind of an example of how they just want to support everybody and encourage us to remember we're powerful. We're very co-creative. We're not at the mercy of our circumstances. We don't have to wait till things get better. We can move already into the energy of experiencing what we desire to experience. There's nothing holding us back from that. Even if time moves a little slowly in the earth plane, our realizations and our vibration, they don't have to move slowly. No.
Caroline, thank you for the gift that you are. I just, this is my time. I always have to just gush over for people. I am so grateful you said yes. I'm so grateful that you said yes to being the channel that you are, and then doing what you do for the highest good of humanity. I am so deeply grateful because
thank you.
Because I just think I actually know it takes a lot of courage to step way out in alignment with who you are, but from a different perspective. Humanity looks at that and says, what? So I just am so grateful for who you are. I'm grateful for the truth you bring. I am grateful for the collective that comes through you. I'm just grateful for the wisdom. You're just a shining star. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Susan. Thank you for this lovely podcast that you do, these beautiful conversations. And I really appreciate being invited on. And thank you for your support of the collective's work. You're a star as well. Everybody watching this has their own brilliant light. It's just a question of allowing ourselves to realize it and giving thanks for that and give yourself credit. I'm always wanting to tell people that, everybody's got their own brilliance. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you again.
So thank you. That's our show for today. So I'm just going to end with, and so it is, namaste.
Well, that wraps up our empowering chat for the day. I hope you enjoyed it and found it inspired you to be more empowered. If you want to find out more about me, go to susanburrell.com, my website, and you can see what we're up to. I am teaching classes again, so there's a calendar of that, and you can register. You can check out my book, Live an Empowered Life, a 30-day journey with the companion inspiration cards, or you can access my guided meditations that go through Insight Timer. We got a bunch of stuff on the website. Check it out. And until then, namaste.